Hello, everyone. It's Val, and I'm excited because tonight we are kind of doing a triple, I want to say a triple show because what we're talking about tonight fits on What to See with Val because we are talking about a documentary that I saw that I want to talk about. We are also on right now live on Seemingly Appropriate podcast because we are talking about things that other people think are uncomfortable that we need to make appropriate to talk about. And we are also on Movies That Make Us because on that podcast, we also talk about movies that influence our lives and make us who we are. So this is a big deal that this topic, this movie, this documentary that we're going to talk about fits all three. We're talking about Anchor Point tonight. And I have with me my special guest. And Holly, you are the creator of Anchor Point.
Yes, ma'am. I sure am.
So let's talk about. We have a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I knew it would be a lot to unpack.
We have a lot of stuff to talk about, and we are going to do that. And of course, if you are watching us live tonight, you can comment below. We would love to hear your input on the things that we're talking about and talk back at you. So join in the conversation. But let's talk about documentary filmmaking really quick because it is award season. And there is a documentary that has made some history this year. I don't know if you have seen Flea yet.
I have not seen Flea.
Oh my gosh, you've got to see Flea. So I'm going to do a whole episode on Flea, but Flea is is an animated foreign language documentary that has been nominated for Best Picture, Best Animated Movie, Best Foreign Language Film, Best Documentary.
Oh my God. Yeah, I do need to see that.
It's the first time it's ever.
I was going to say.
I know that it came out for a little while last year so that all of us critics could review it and it could get into the award season, but then it wasn't anywhere for a while. And so I think it did specifically come out a week or two ago. You might call me out on that if that's not. I'll look that up in a little bit, but documentary filmmaking isn't usually something that gets nominated for one Best Picture.
Right.
And also usually not an animation. I love documentaries, but this is the first time I have seen an animated documentary before. So I am going to put you to the test. I want you to go watch this so that you can come back on the episode when we talk about Flea, because I know you're going to want to talk about it. And we'll have a couple other people on that episode as well. But
Sweet.
Let's just in general talk about documentary filmmaking. Like, what got you into this? Because you are basically right now living the life I want to live. I went to film school because I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, and now I work in radio and I've got a podcast. So I'm way far off to the left of what I want to do.
We all start somewhere and end up where we never thought we were going to. Isn't that the truth?
I feel like it. So how did you get here? What made you want to do it, and what are you doing now?
Man, so, and I said man, and I should not say man. I should say wow or golly. Once we talk about the film, you'll understand why I say that about that. So I started in film when I was 36 years old. And I had done a plethora of things, including being a letter carrier for the United States Postal Service. And there is a fire relation there as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I rescued 2 of my patrons on my route from a fire. So there you go.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Whole nother podcast there. I had met actually a woman that was the first female letter carrier in the state of Utah when I was carrying mail. And she was pretty much getting ready to retire. And I said, someday, Barry Franklin, I'm going to make a documentary about you. And she's like, you're a letter carrier. What are you talking about? And I've always been a person who, I was in AV club in junior high school. And I was totally AV nerd. And then I got into high school, and I should have stuck with it because I went to Highland High School, and at the time, I'm dating myself, but at the time, we had one of the only closed circuit television stations for high school. Like we had a functioning newsroom, and it broadcast out to the high school. And
it was like you and Kearns at the time.
Yeah, there wasn't very many high schools doing that.
I was one of the few people that started my Taylorsville High School's first television program. And I remember we went over to Kearns and Highland before that to take the classes because we didn't have it available. So yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so of course, I got involved playing sports, and then it was like that was not going to happen because practice and all the other extracurricular activities that go with being a sport person did not jive with the morning and afternoon newscasts that were being broadcast to the students. But so I've always been a person in my family who carried around a camera and documented what was going on. I've always been really curious about our family history and, finding old archival pictures and things like that. And so I've always been kind of that person that has enjoyed the medium, I guess. And when I was in college, people, filmmakers, and probably you and other people who own theaters probably can shun me. My father and we were kind of broke and living in Newport Beach, California. And there was a cool cinema, kind of like the Broadway, where they played art house stuff and foreign flicks and stuff like that, and lots of documentaries. And we would, on Sundays, I would come down from college and spend time with him. And we would pay for one movie and then sneak into like at least 3 more.
Right.
And watch movies all day long. And that was just like stuff that we would do. And so movies have always been a part of my family and a part of my life. And documentaries especially. I love true stories. I think, I don't know, there's just nothing stranger than truth.
Yeah, totally.
And so when I was a letter carrier, I was extremely unhappy. And the iMac came out with iMovie for the first time when I was carrying mail. And so I started practicing making little things for my family and stuff, with slideshows and other geeky things that you do when you start to learn to use editing tools. And I started kind of trying to tell stories I'd pick specific music that would go with the stuff that I put together and try to tell a story. And people started hiring me for doing like family history videos and things like that. And then I was kind of like so unhappy being a letter carrier that I was talking to a friend of mine who's a well-known life coach here in the Valley, Lynn Christian of Soul Salt. And she was like, well, what are you passionate about? And I said, well, I'm really loving what I'm doing in my hobbiness of putting together these movies and things for people. She's like, well, have you ever thought about becoming a filmmaker? And I was like, how would I even do that? And she's like, well, talk to some people who are already doing film. And so that's kind of where it started. And I actually asked a bunch of people, do I need to go to college? And every single person who was in college was like, no, absolutely. Yeah. Do not waste your money. So I like to tell people I went to Google and YouTube University for film school.
I mean, I think that's kind of what everybody's doing now. I went to film school and, it was a good experience, but I really think that being on set is like the best school you can go to.
Yeah. No, everything I learned from people who were willing to help out this geeky person who showed up and was just like, teach me how to do what you do. And some of them would be like, hell no, get out of my face, lady. And then others were like, oh yeah, I'd be happy to teach you some things. And I started out as a grip and electric person. So I did a lot of lugging around heavy equipment that I had no business even touching really. But and learned how to light. And then once I learned how to light, I basically was like, okay, now I know how to light and I feel comfortable in that area. Now I want to learn how to do camera. And so I found a couple of people who taught me, you know, what doing camera work would look like. And in 2010, I was producing a lot of stuff for people because I've been a manager, and I feel like when you're a manager, those skill sets translate over to producing really well. And I basically just told everybody, I'm not producing anything anymore. Please don't ask me to produce. I only want camera gigs.
Yeah.
And it was hard because I went probably through like a 6 to 9 month period where I wasn't shooting anything except for whatever I was pointing my camera at just to get practice.
That's crazy because I did the same thing, because you and I have similar backgrounds when it comes to being in management and being females in management and being females that want to get into film. And that's what I was doing, was producing, because that's what I could do, because everyone else wanted to do what I call the fun, but they didn't want to do, you know, how to make you have to actually do these business things to make the film happen. And then as soon as I said I wasn't going to write budgets anymore and I'm not going to produce anymore, I want to be behind the camera, because I went to film school for editing and directing.
Wow.
And the last time I edited and directed a film for someone was probably, you know, at least 12 years ago.
Wow.
But you had the tenacity to like keep going. And I'm like one of those people that I need some instant gratification. So I found other things to do that I kind of, and this gets us into the movie, that I was allowed to do at the level of smarts that I have, of intelligence, to use all of my capabilities. And, you know, and so, I mean, we met probably about 10 years ago, I think.
At least.
And in, you know, the film groups here in Utah, and you kept going, and I kind of, you know, said, well, I mean, I like to watch movies and I can do that, you know, I can talk about them, just because I'm sad to say this, but I was just tired of fighting it for a while. You know what I mean?
I'm going to make an adjustment to my camera right now. It's flickering and it's pissing me off.
Of course, because you've
spoken like a true cinematographer.
Yeah.
Hold on.
And so you kept going.
I did.
And, you know, you took that little bit of drought and you kept going. And then now you're here. You've got this documentary, and you can see at the top of the screen up here, you know, everything that this film, probably not everything, but a lot of the things where your film has gone. And so you finally got behind the camera. You waited, you know, through the drought, you got behind the camera, and I've been just watching you, you know, not like a stalker, but I've been
we've been stalking. We've stalked each other for a long time. So that's bullshit. We're both stalking each other.
And I finally dared to be like, hey, let's finally chat, because you know, that's what we have to do. We have to just do the things we want to do. And that's when I finally got, and I have not watched the entire documentary yet, because we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I watched enough that I didn't, because sometimes I will do a segment like this, and I will watch a film, and then I watch it and oh crap, I don't like it, and I have to do a whole podcast about it. But I'm so excited because, one, I love documentaries. Two, I love stories that make us continue the conversation. That's why I wanted to make films, is because the films I was watching when I was 15, 16, 17 years old were films that made the conversation keep going. And that's why I wanted to get into films. And so I love to share movies with people that start a conversation and continue a conversation, and things that make people uncomfortable that shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like what we're going to talk about today, Anchor Point, they're things that we need to talk about, but for some reason right now in the culture that we are going through, people are afraid to talk about because they're afraid to get in trouble.
Yep.
They're afraid to say the wrong thing.
Yep.
When I really think saying nothing is the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Complacency is like worse than trying and fucking up. Can I use that word here?
I mean, you did now. So.
I did now. Oops, sorry. Beep. Yeah.
Movies that make us people. I'm sorry, there's an F word in there. But all the rest of my podcasts are used to that. So,
okay.
But
I'll try to tame my F bombs.
You're totally fine. You're totally fine. So what I want to talk about, let's get into this really quick because I mean we could talk about your background forever, and I do definitely. We need to have you on again just to talk about like your journey to get here. And I'm having some spammers, so I'm trying to block live spamming comments at the same time as I'm talking to you.
Okay.
So tell us what Anchor Point is about, and then we'll get into some things. And I am going to show at least one clip of the film. And I have to say, beautiful film to watch. Like outside of what the subject matter is, like I could just shut like the sound off and just watch the film.
Beautiful. Thanks. That's a huge compliment. That's a huge compliment. So thank you, because I filmed a lot of this film by myself. The other part, my other, I would say, cinematographer partner was one of my subjects.
Oh, nice. Okay.
With a GoPro.
Yeah, and, I saw some of that. I saw some of that.
Yeah. And she did a stellar job. Like I gave her a few pointers, and she had a student from University of Montana, I think it was, that she knew, come and go hiking with her and teach her how to use the settings and everything on the GoPro, because I had to send them to her.
Right.
And so she had 2 different GoPros that she used and out in the field, and because we weren't allowed to go out in the field with her. So I was like, well, the movie's over if I can't, if we can't be with you. So, because you're one of my main characters. And she's like, well, firefighters have GoPros all the time. Like they're taking footage of everything they do out there. She's like, it's not what I do.
Right.
But I'll do it for this film. So, she took it to task, and her stuff is incredible, like really incredible, beautiful stuff with a GoPro.
I know. It's a crazy how we have so many things at our fingertips these days to do what we want to do. So there really is no excuse but yourself. And I'm pointing my finger at me. But let's get into the topic because
for sure.
Tell everybody just a little bit about what this movie is, and then we'll jump into the nitty gritty of it.
Okay, so Anchor Point is the story of 2 female wildland firefighters from 2 different generations going through their 2019 season. And basically what the story kind of gets into is the discrimination and harassment that they face as women in wildland fire, and how each of them kind of navigate that world in different ways. And that they're really trying to change the culture from within, and looking to make the culture of fire a better place for not just themselves, but for men and women alike. And basically we talk about, patriarchy and misogyny, and in really non-threatening ways, I think.
I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was going to bring up. The one thing that I really appreciate about what I've watched so far about this documentary is that it's not a bashing documentary. And I've seen a lot of, I don't know if I'd call them documentaries, but there's a lot of content out there right now on different streaming services that take one side. And the idea of a documentary, of a true documentary, in my opinion, is that you tell the full story from both sides, and you let the viewer really absorb the information and come out with their own conclusion, right?
Yep.
And so with this, yes, you're having you're having these people in the documentary, and I'm going to say people because there's men and women in the documentary that are really telling their true experiences, but it is not in an abrasive way. It is just, this is what's happening and this is what we need to do. And there's some laughing, and there's some serious moments, and there is humor because there is humor in it. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
both there's so many sides to what's going on in our culture right now, and none of us know what to do, right?
Right.
Like, it's just,
Yeah.
we don't know what to do. We don't know how to handle it because humans are flawed and we all have different opinions on things.
Yep.
But I love also, I don't know if this was the intention, but as I'm watching it, your characters are telling me about, and there's two different generations, like you said, their experiences being a firefighter. But also, I'm learning a lot about how fire is actually is good for the environment if used in the right way. Like things that I had no idea. I know that we've been, utilizing protected fires for a long time, like that's something that
Mhm.
we do, but I didn't quite understand why it was so important. So you
Yeah.
kind of have an environmental documentary as well.
Yes, definitely. That was a really interesting dance that we had to do because for Kelly, especially, the concept of what we call good fire is very, very meaningful to her and very important to her. And she was very hesitant to. She did not want this documentary to be a victimization of women
Hmm.
in fire. These women don't necessarily want to be seen as heroes either.
They're just doing their job.
They're just doing their job. They
Yeah.
love what they do and they're doing their job. And Kelly is an amazing fire expert. She has, started when she was extremely young, working in nature. She worked for the Park Service as a park ranger, and then from there got interested in fire. And it was hard for her at that time. It was, I want to say like the early '80s, and she actually had to help with a fire that happened at a camp place that she was working at, and I think she was part of like the kitchen staff or something, and
Yeah.
it was like all hands on deck kind of thing, and it was really exciting. And she actually asked the guy who was in charge that they were helping, how would I get into this? And he's like, women don't do fire. It just wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
And so she started pursuing it, and she is one of the highest ranking fire management officials in the history of fire. I'm not going to say but she's one of.
Hmm.
And she was the chief of fire and aviation at Yosemite National Park. And when she started there, probably would have been probably in like 2009, I want to say. Her goal was to work with the park system to allow fire that was naturally started, lightning strikes and such, to burn. Just let them burn. And Yosemite is one of the only parks that does that.
Hmm.
Lets natural fires burn, unless they're going to threaten
Yeah, they're
life and.
controlled, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And so because they are very important for land management and for renewal, and sequoias wouldn't exist unless there's fire. So it's really a misnomer that we're constantly putting out wildfires. It's really something that I learned, doing this film, that fire is just really important to our natural world. And that ever since colonialization, We have suppressed fire.
Yeah.
And there's a metaphor there. We also suppress women, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And so there's
I want to say really quick though, this does not mean you go out into the wilderness and start fires.
no.
Humans ruin things.
Yes, humans ruin things.
We don't want human-made fires. We want natural contained fires.
Natural contained fires. What we call, I mean, they do prescribe the women prescribe fire training exchange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where we did a lot of filming directly with fire because it was controlled.
Yeah, it's
safe.
Contained fire. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so there are people who understand weather patterns and the fuel that's on the ground, that how it's going to burn, and burning patterns that, keep things contained, and the weather, humidity levels. There's all sorts of things, science that is required to burn the land and bring back species that may have been choked out by species that shouldn't be there, and it allows for things that nest to come and nest. There's just tons of things about fire that are so important, and I would have never have known that until I started working on this.
It was a side effect of the movie, which I love because that's when with a documentary, you never really know what you're going to get. You start with a plan and you hope that plan happens. But documentaries aren't scripted. There are points of interest. There are things that you want to get through, but sometimes documentaries go a different route that you don't expect. And you can check out the I Am Val Cameron on YouTube, because I just interviewed a whole bunch of documentarians from Sundance. And
I love it.
The Panola Project was also one of those documentaries that started out one way and kind of ended up another way in the most brilliant way. So that's what I love documentaries. And it's a controlled wildfire. That's what a documentary is.
Yeah. No, it really is.
But so both of us have worked in or tried to work in a lot of avenues where it is mainly male, right? I mean, you said you were a letter carrier, but you've also a filmmaker. I've worked in radio. I've worked in film. I've worked in, television, podcasting, and almost all of those for a long time were predominantly male. And so what I loved about your veteran firefighter is that her perspective is probably similar to our perspective, in that there are a lot of things that I don't mind conversations with the other sex, because we're joking around and we're having a good time and I don't mind it. Other people, other females or other people might be upset by this now because they've been told to be upset about it, or for whatever reason, and that's fine. But now we're in this culture where we don't know how to joke with each other. We don't know how to converse with each other. So therefore we don't know how to talk about the important subjects. So jump into kind of the juxtaposition of your two characters and being a firefighter on both sides of this.
Yeah. So Kelly is 50. When we were making the movie, she had just turned 57.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you some context of, the era she grew up. And Lacey was 31, maybe. Not very old.
Yeah, she looks like she's 20.
Yeah, she's very young at heart too. Yeah. And just talk about somebody who really understands social justice, and she's always trying to understand other people's perspectives and respect people's differences. And she, put herself through an online social justice course just because she wanted to do it, and understand things better. And, she stands up for the LGBTQ community, the BIPOC community. She's just really um, she's very whip smart, and also comes from a different era where that generation is standing up for folks and stepping aside as a cis white person, to allow for other people to come front and center, and pointing out to people when their behavior is not desirable.
All right. So by saying that, I want to share just this clip really quick, if my computer will allow me to do it, because technology, man, all of a sudden it doesn't want to work. But it would have been a perfect segue, just like Seamless. But now all of a sudden my Google Chrome,
it's saying,
dang it, Google Chrome, I love you.
Come on,
anyway.
Google Chrome.
All right. So just expand on that, because I think when we're watching some specific scenes of them during the controlled environment, they're sitting around, they're talking as the fire is kind of burning, they're having lunch like nothing, else is going on there. And they're just sharing both sides of the story,
Right.
some of these younger women are saying, we've had to go through this and that and the other. And then you've got your veterans, they're saying, and that never bothered me, know? And so I don't think there's a wrong or a right to it. I think, like you said, like I'm just trying to understand both sides of it. And I think that these days we want to say your way is wrong and my way is right, instead of saying there can be more than one right way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely nuanced. And Lacey really, is like, not all people are bad actors. Not all the people that are in fire are awful human beings. Some of her, and that goes for me too in the film industry. Like, a lot of people are like, you're a feminist and you must, I've come up against people who have discriminated against me simply because I'm a woman in film. But some of my greatest mentors have been men. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people who have taken the time to teach me things have been men. But there are bad actors as well.
Right.
And so
all across the board.
Across the board. Oh yeah, for sure. There are definitely some really bad women who treat other women really horribly.
Yeah.
And that happens in fire too. And so it's how do we find ways to work together and respect our differences is kind of, I think, where the film tries to land. And I think that one of the things that Lacey kind of taught me is that, it's a yes and. It's not but. It's a yes and. Right. And so it's really important to, it's kind of like how she says there's one scene where she talks about, my boss called me a girl.
That's the scene I'm trying to show you.
Trying to pull up.
And it's saying Chrome is not responding. So I'm hoping that this
rude.
Our podcast is actually happening right now. I've never had this happen in a podcast during a vlogcast before.
During a blogcast
where it says it's not responding. And so, like, I don't even know if we're still live. Like, I'm hoping that we are. We're just
my little thing is in the corner that says it's live.
Okay, so. Well, that's good. I hope that it's not just a black screen, because my whole screen, how it does like that white filmy thing that says it's not responding. That's what I have. So I can't touch or do anything with my screen right now.
Oh, so no.
My hands are off. I love technology, man.
That's awful.
And I just said that. I love technology, man. That's a thing that, like, I've had to pay more attention to, and I've wanted to, is like the you guys, because I've grown up saying you guys. When I started working for I was the Pride Festival director for 1 year, and it made me understand more why, you know,
Gendered
maybe
based language
yeah, and
is
but
is im- is
it's
kind of
important. Yeah,
important.
it's important, and but I grew up with we all grow up in different ways, and I don't
Hmm.
ever get angry with the way people are because they grow up, but what you need to do is once you learn, you
But you
need
learn, you just have to keep working at it.
yeah,
Like,
and it is a lot of work because I still walk into a room sometimes of all women and I'm like, "Hey guys, what's up?"
hey guys, yeah, right,
Because that's that muscle that's in there that and I'm not saying like if you say it, you
right,
know, w but for me, it's important that I recognize it and that I try and do better for me.
yeah. Well,
Um,
and it's a room full of women, so
yeah.
so and also, you know, in fire, when the majority of the people in the room are men, and there are women there,
Mhm.
you know, it excludes those women, whether they intend it to or not. And everything in our language, in our culture, is based around the white male.
Mhm.
And so, the predominant way that language is built is in favor of maleness, if you
Mhm.
will.
Yeah.
And so we're all steeped in it, men, women, children, all of us. And so we all do things that harm folks.
Yeah.
It's not just men, it's women too. And because we do things to uphold the patriarchy. And so it is about just being conscious of, who you're talking with. And part of that, you're gonna make mistakes. I mean, when we were filming with W Trex, this is a classic example. The first day that we got there, because we spent 7 days camping with these women and men, and we got there, and Lacey was doing a briefing or kind of a talk, if you will, before they got ready for the burn that day. And her talk was about using language, appropriate language,
Right.
appropriate pronouns, how to address a group of people that's mixed gendered, or maybe you don't even know, like it seems as though they might be men, but they also might be women. You don't
Yeah.
know anymore.
And you
And
can't
so
assume. You shouldn't
exactly,
assume.
you shouldn't assume. And so how do we her whole talk was about language. And we'd gotten there, as her talk was kind of concluding. And so, heard like the discussion afterwards. And one of the things that, she gave an example of is like, you talk to a group of people and you say, hey, you guys, and
Mhm.
there's 20 women in the room and 50 men.
Right.
Well, there's not just guys in that room. And so, one of the people that was at the camp was this transgender woman. And she said, well, when we have folks that do that, make that mistake, we just yell out bingo. So
Oh,
that
okay.
it makes them aware that
Yeah.
they screwed up. And it's kind of become this fun game. So I get up and have to introduce myself as this filmmaker to all these women and men. And the women have had a bad experience a couple of years back that I didn't know about. And there was a journalist who came and just constantly was hounding them about, basically, imagine somebody, how did he touch you? Kind of thing. And the story that journalist produced, none of them really appreciated, because he
Right.
just kept hounding them about all the discrimination and the harassment and trying to get into those really nitty gritty details and horrible accounts. And most of them don't want to relive that trauma if they've had it.
Yeah.
And so they are very leery of people like me showing up with a camera. So I'm introducing myself, and the first thing I say to everybody is, "Hi guys, how you doing?" And that transgender woman yelled out, "Bingo!" You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there I was. I'd heard the talk.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard the example,
Mm-hmm.
and I went up there and just, introduced myself and did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, and over the last 2 to 3 years, my language goes in and out of that appropriateness, and I'm
Right.
constantly having to, check myself.
Yeah, you have to train that muscle to be
Mhm.
to work differently. Yeah.
But I do use y'all and folks a lot. I think people think I'm from the South now because y'all and folks has kind of become my go-to for groups of people.
Yeah.
And because it's the most inclusive way that I know how to address a group of people that is mixed gendered, and
Yeah.
it's just the safest way to do it. And it's respectful.
Let's jump into that scene that I've been trying to show, but for
Yeah.
some reason, maybe if we talk about it and we
Yeah.
get past it, then the technology
Then the technology will
you
catch
know,
up with us.
But this scene is really great because I think we've all had moments, every single one of us, where we've been in a situation where something bothers us, uh, and we don't say anything, and we don't say anything, and we don't say anything because we don't wanna cause a problem. We just
Mhm.
wanna come do our jobs. We don't wanna be that issue person, and then when we finally say something about it, we get basically villainized, uh, for saying something, um, or taken out of context, I guess,
Mhm.
would be the same, and that's what happens. So explain this scene a little bit
Yeah.
for us.
So Lacey's explaining, what it's like to be a woman in a very male dominated job. And she's explaining what she does. And she's like, I rappel out of helicopters into areas that we put out fires. I carry a sometimes 100-pound pack out of the backcountry after we get dropped in to handle those fires. And, you know, and yet I'll be at work, and during the week, my boss will call me girl like 48 times. And that one time that I say, hey, could you quit calling me girl?
Yeah.
Could you use my name or some other, way to address me than girl?
Yeah.
Because I'm a woman. I'm a full grown woman. I'm not a
Yeah.
little girl.
Mhm.
And I mean, she doesn't say that, but that's what's implied is
Yeah.
like,
I mean, you just wanna be like everyone else that you're with, and so you're
exactly.
not walking around calling the men, "Hey boy,
Hey
hey
boy.
boy, hey
Right. Hey
boy,
boy.
hey boy."
Hmm.
Yeah, so I get that, but so it's the
But she
one.
basically called him out on it, and
Yeah,
she's now the bitch.
she's the
She's the
problem.
problem.
Yeah, yeah,
And then she's dealing with the attitude of being the problem person on the
yeah.
crew because she
I
stood up for herself.
I do wanna say, Musa, I see your comments, and we'll get to those in just a second. I can usually bring comments up
Mm.
onto the screen, but
But
but today's the day that that's not gonna work out. So yeah, we'll get to all comments in just a second. But yeah, so this moment where she's like, so I finally say something after not saying anything, and I'm the problem, and now you're villainized. And if you say something about, I'm not trying to make you the bad guy. I'm just trying to point something
right.
out that I don't like,
Mhm.
then then they think they're being villainized, and so it's this, like, how do we have this conversation
Yeah.
with people because everyone is so on edge, and I just think, and I know this is such a kumbaya statement, but if we could all just be open to the fact that we don't know everything,
Yep.
and the fact that we all have different feelings about things, and just stop being so defensive. But I
Yep.
think that most of us, and I'm trying not to say we all, that most of us, that's another thing I'm
Mhm.
working on. that most
Mm-hmm.
of us, no matter who you are, have been in a situation where you have tried to explain a situation and it doesn't come across the way that you're trying to come across, right? I don't
Right.
want to be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and it just horrifies me now that I even said it. I was on a women in film panel at Sundance like 10 years ago, whatever. Um, and it was a panel about women getting up there and saying how they have basically been not even sexually harassed, but just sexually mistreated at a job just because you're a woman and
Mm-hmm.
this. And I got up to say, I've never, like, I think of myself as a filmmaker, not a woman filmmaker. And I never felt like I was being that I've been put in that aspect. um and I kind of, I don't know, I kind of was just like, I don't, not all of us are like that. And I actually
Yeah.
said, like, I've never led with my vagina before because I've always just walked in a room like, I am just here to work. But I think it's important, and this is why, like, when I think about that moment, it irks me. It's actually empowering to say I'm a woman filmmaker,
Yes.
or, I am a male filmmaker, or I am a minority filmmaker, or I am a what, because, it's, we need to see those things. And I
Yes.
know that we all want to be treated equally and the same, but I also want to be noticed for who I am. And
Right.
I am, like, I am right now that I know of the only female film critic on TV in Utah. How is that a thing?
Yeah. How is that a thing?
At this current time, I'm pretty sure I'm
It
the
is.
only female film critic on the air.
It is 2022.
Right?
Um.
And I wanna say that I am a film critic, and I don't
Yeah.
want people to think that I'm anything other, but at this moment, it's very important to say, I am the only
Only
female
female. Mm-hmm.
film critic that is on any television station that I'm aware of in Utah, right? And I rotate with someone
Yeah.
else, like, I'm not even on, like, full time.
Yeah.
Um
You kind of fill in. Well,
Yeah,
right.
I
You
rotate
rotate.
with someone else, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine,
Yeah.
but, like, how is that a thing? And so I think, I just cringe because, yes, we all wanna be treated equally. We are actors, we are filmmakers, we are firefighters, we are service people,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, there are moments in time, moments in history where it's very important for you to be noticed for what you are doing, um, because people need to be aware when they're when it's
When
predominantly
it's
one
predominantly
thing.
one thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I
For
think that's
sure.
what these women are trying to say. There was a moment that
Mm-hmm.
I saw in the documentary where it's like, you know what? It's usually, 50 men and 3 women out here. How awesome would it be for us to turn it around to be the other way? And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. They basically because for a lot of these women, they go to these training camps and to level up their skill set so that, like, if I'm a, say, second year firefighter and I want to learn how to use a chainsaw, who are they going to give the chainsaw if we're going to a mostly male attended training scenario? They're going to
Not
give it to
me.
the dudes. They're
Right.
not going to give it to the girl.
Yeah.
And then if they do give it to the girl, the pressure is on because that girl represents every single
And
person
yeah.
that looks like her in that training.
So if she
And
fails or
so if
makes
she
a mistake,
fails, then
that's
it's like,
gonna be in
see,
their mind. Yeah.
none y'all can do this, right?
Well, and I love it because you also have a guy on there, and he's like, there isn't one woman here that's not capable or more capable than most of, their male counterpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something very important. He's like, "Well, none of us are going to understand what any of us need," and I'm not saying the exact words,
Yeah.
until we know what everyone else has gone through. So
Mm-hmm.
until you start understanding what it's like to be a female in a predominantly male job, or a transgender person in a predominantly,
Straight world.
straight world, or a predominantly, I don't know, I'm not saying white males are bad, but sometimes
No.
you're in a situation where you're a young male and you're now, thankfully now there's situations where there's an all female office and you're the only guy there. Like that's
Yeah.
now a thing. I have seen it. And so
Yeah.
again, we've all been in these situations where we're trying to navigate. And I think if we keep the door open to the conversations of understanding that we need to navigate the situation, we need to
Mm-hmm.
calm down, we need to listen before we talk, like all these things that we were taught in kindergarten
Mm-hmm.
that we forgot as soon as we
That
graduated school, right?
absolutely forgot. Totally forgot. Boop. Just gone.
Yeah.
Just gone. Yeah. These women basically were together at an all, majority male training because they have these Trex programs all over the country and the world. But when, 90% of the workforce is male, it's very rare that these women see another woman sometimes during a season.
Yeah.
And so there was like 15 of them at a Trex event in North Carolina in 2015. And it just so happened that they were all bunking in the same cabin. And there was an ice storm, so they couldn't burn. They couldn't do some of the training because it was just miserably cold and icy. And they ended up kind of having this powwow. Uh-oh.
No, I'm here.
Okay, good.
I'm good. I got it fixed.
They ended up having this powwow and going, this is weird. This is weird because I've never worked with so many women in the same place at the same time.
Right.
And wouldn't it be cool if we could actually develop a training that was female centered instead of male centered? And so they approached the guy who runs the Trex program and said, we want to develop a women's Trex and we want to flip flop the numbers. We want there to be 90% women at the training and 10% men. It's not that they don't want men there. They want men there because they actually talk about during their camp, their training camp, issues that women face.
Yeah.
And so that the males that do attend have this space that is more female centered and they can actually learn from the women what it is that they feel when they're working with a male dominated group.
Yeah.
And so every guy who I've talked to that's come out of that program that has had the balls to go and to be a part of W-Trex comes away from that camp a changed firefighter and a better ally to women on their workforce and also for just any minority group. Because believe me, just like Monica says in the movie, if some guy is picking on you and calling you cupcake, you can definitely bet that weak guy, a man who's the weakest link, he's picking on that guy too.
Yeah.
And so it's about standing up for everybody. And that's really, what this gets to is that it's really about, it's not about equality as much as about equity.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between equality and equity.
All right, I'm going to cross your fingers that we're going to, just because I know we talked about it, but I also want people to just see how beautiful the film is, but also just to have, that moment with your cast right here. So I'm going to bring it on. Yay, that worked. Let's turn up the audio.
Because you say like, well, my boss called me a girl. Okay, brush it off, let it go. And I said, well, my boss called me a girl 48 times this week. And I let it go. 46 of those times, and then I pointed it out twice, and now I'm difficult. That's not really simple to explain to someone who hasn't experienced that. And that's just one example. The amount of energy that I spend regulating my emotional response to my work environment is ludicrous. I mean, I spend a lot of mental energy on the work itself. It's a dynamic, risky environment that we're constantly reassessing and evaluating. That itself is exhausting. To add on top of that, being constantly aware of the fact that I'm in an environment that's like a cultural environment that doesn't feel totally welcoming and 100% safe, that's just an added energy expenditure that I don't think I have the capacity to keep doing that for the rest of my career.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff. And also I like there are so many shots. She actually rappels out of a helicopter and the rope gets caught on the tree and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh no." And she gets out of it and she gets to the bottom and she figures it out and it's one again, there's just so many stories inside of this story. And look what I can do now. Look at that. Musa. He said, I'm so glad.
Musa.
He said,
Thanks
I'm so
for
glad
dropping in.
someone is bringing this to the big screen. No one should be treated differently based on the gender or color on their skin. And we agree. These are the conversations that we need to have. And we can have the conversations without being volatile.
Yeah.
Because if you're being volatile, that's not a conversation.
No, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's either a yelling match or a, I'm right, you're right. And really, respectful dialogue is what's required in order to make change, because you may not always agree, but you can always find some common ground, and that's really what these women are trying to do. And it's not easy, and there are no easy answers for sure. And I can't wait for you to see the rest of the film.
I'm so excited to watch it. And my review, I know that sounds scary, but my review for the film will be up on whattoseewithval.com by Monday, which I will also be writing. This is a scary one. I will also be writing my review for The Batman, which I saw yesterday, and I can't say anything about it until Monday. So you will have 2 new reviews to read, as well as, if you didn't know, Cyrano opens this weekend, which I already wrote a review on Cyrano when it came out for award season, but it comes out this weekend. So a lot to do. I'm super excited about this documentary. I'm super excited that it's doing so well. So tell me, tell all of us, where is this documentary going now? And where can people find it, watch it, follow you, become a fan of yours, become involved with what you're doing?
Yeah. You can find me at Tucky FHP on Instagram or Holly Tuckett on Facebook. The film has its own Facebook page called Anchor Point Film, I think. Gosh,
we'll make sure those links. We'll make sure those links go into the comments, and I'll put them in my review as well.
And it has an Anchor Point Instagram page as well. We've been in 17 festivals so far. We've taken away 7 awards, 3 of those being Best Documentary, 1 being an Audience Award, and Best Cinematography, Best Director. It's been really well received on the circuit, and I'm blessed that it has been. As a filmmaker, film festivals are so important, and having them not be live was almost soul crushing. I've only, out of all those 17, I've only been to 3 live festivals.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Everything else has been online. And but the funny thing of it is, Val, is that if those film festivals had been online, none of the firefighters would have been able to see the movie.
Right. There's good and bad to both. And the fact that this is the thing, when you're in a theater watching a film, you have a tendency to bond with it a little bit more. It's that feeling and that power that you get from everyone in the room. So the fact that your documentary is being screened while people are at home with all these different things around them to capture their attention, and you still got all of those nominations and awards, that's saying something as well.
Yeah.
And thankfully all of the firefighters got to see the documentary. Is it gonna be at other festivals? What's coming up?
Yes. Coming up, the Destiny City Film Festival in I think it's in Washington State, just outside of Tacoma, Washington, I believe. That is an online festival. We will be playing there starting today, I believe.
So people can buy tickets.
So people can buy tickets and watch the film.
That's how you can watch the film. And
Yep,
then
I think-
they vote? Can everyone that watches the film vote, or is it a jury?
I believe that there are audience awards at pretty much every festival that we've been to. They've had audience
So
awards.
make sure you send me that link, or put it in the comments so that people can follow that.
I'm not logged in, so it's not letting me even see the comments. But
I think I can only see the comments because I'm in charge right now. But
but it's
we'll put it in there.
It's DestinyCityFilmFestival.com, I believe.
Okay.
And then also Women's Voices Now, which is a very it's a well-known women's group of filmmakers. That it's a festival, but it's it's kind of like an invite kind of festival, and you get selected, and then the selected films are in competition for cash awards. That starts on the 1st of March and runs through the 31st, and we have been picked for that, and I am stunned that we got picked because Erica Kahn, who I totally respect, her film Belly of the Beast, which is fantastic, it's won an Emmy or two, and she's somebody who I adore and love her films, and we're right alongside her film Belly of the Beast. And Abby Ginsberg, who's a very famous documentarian, has a film that they picked. And so this is it's kind of been a surreal time. We're working on distribution.
Nice.
So hopefully in the next 6 to 8 months, you'll see it actually out there in places where you can rent or buy it. I would prefer it just go straight to streaming platform, but I don't know that will happen. It's been an amazing journey. You haven't seen the part of the film where we actually have Brandi Carlile and the Highwomen
I've
song.
met Brandi Carlile. I brought her out for the Pride Festival in 2016.
Yes. Yes. She and Natalie Hemby and Laurie McKenna are the songwriters of Crowded Table. And we got a festival license to start with, but the three of them have said yes to worldwide rights. And we're working on getting Warner Records to basically say yes on the master recording side. So as soon as that happens,
you got some big things going on.
Yeah, making stuff happen. And
does it make your every time you say that you're a filmmaker, that you've said it tonight on this podcast, it just makes my heart smile. I mean, how does it feel to say that? Like, a lot of people can say, like, they say they're a filmmaker, but like to actually be like a filmmaker, how does that feel now? I mean, you started, what you said, at 36?
36, and I'm 55
years old.
It took me almost 20 years to get there.
And it makes me happy because I'm going to be 43 this year. And I just, you go through those times in your life where you're like, I got off track and it might be too late for me to get there. And so for you, like, you started at 36 and you're a filmmaker and you're doing well and you've got to push through. So many things we're learning tonight. So many things.
Yeah. And I'll say this, Val, even when you think you've arrived, there's still more work to do.
There's more. You got to keep working all the time. Keep pushing.
Yeah. It's, no, it's very validating. This film, especially, this is the best film I've made out of every film I've made to this point. And I love it. I am, a lot of filmmakers will finish their films and they'll be like, oh, I'm so sick and tired of seeing this film.
Mm-hmm.
I watch it and I still am happy with the end product. Is it perfect? No, because no film is ever, film is ever perfect.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change anything about it. It turned out beautiful, and I love these women. They make me want to be a better person every day, and so much so that I'm actually getting certified as a prescribed fire practitioner.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
Because I want to be able to spend time with them when they're doing their craft. And there's some other issues that need to be addressed within the wildland firefighting community. And I feel like if I can at least get type 2 certified, that it would allow me to go out and work on some of those other issues as a filmmaker. And yeah, I'm going to burn with them in Virginia at the end of March and the beginning of April. So we'll be trekking through the Virginia forests.
I'm so excited for you. With everything that's going on, it makes me proud. I don't know if that's okay to say. Musa says, who does your casting and where can we follow any opening opportunities? I'm sure she can post that as well, or you can message her on her Instagram.
Yeah, message me, Musa.
And she can get with you. But I would love to invite you back in the future. I would love to see if we can have maybe a firefighter or two on for a bigger conversation, which would be really cool to have. And then, of course, have you back to talk about other people's movies. I do want to, award season is here. The Oscars are coming up. I know a lot of you don't believe in the Oscars, and that's fine. But Jane Campion is nominated for Best Director for I think my favorite. If Flea wins over The Power of the Dog, that's the only thing that I would be okay with this year, because The Power of the Dog, I have not done an episode on it yet. So I want to do an episode on The Power of the Dog, and I want to do an episode on Flea, because I think they were two of the best movies of last year. I'm also going to be doing an episode on one of the movies there's two movies I think were just kind of washed over, and I'm going to throw these out there so that you guys can start thinking about them. Go watch them so we can talk about them together. One of them is The Tender Bar with Ben Affleck, and it is on Netflix. And this movie, critics hated it because they said it was nothing special. And this is what I have to say to other critics. Your opinion is your opinion. For me, it was a well-made movie. And sometimes all I want is to sit in a theater or sit at home and watch a movie that from front to back is well written, well directed, well acted, that the pacing is great, and it's not freaking 3 hours long, black and white, or singing at me. And and I love all of those other movies. Okay. It is on Prime. Sorry, it is on Prime. I've watched so many movies, you guys. In the past 6 months, I have watched hundreds and hundreds of movies. So I forget. I do have a review up at whattoseewithval.com, but I want to talk about The Tender Bar. I want to talk about how it's great to see light in Ben Affleck's eyes again when he is doing his craft. But I also want to talk about another film, and I think this is the one that's on Netflix. And I'm going to make sure really quick that is correct before we're out of here today, because I love Western films. It's one of my favorite genres, and this movie came out, and not only was it a great Western film, but it was also a great soundtrack. It was great direction, and the acting was absolutely fantastic. And if you guys have not seen it yet, I'm making sure, is it on Netflix before I say anything? Why won't my computer work today? I don't know if it's you.
It could be me. I have weird February energy.
Weird. February is almost over.
Yes.
I think it is because it's passing, but that isn't one I want to talk about. All right. Please come up. And somebody can maybe correct me here, but I feel like this movie, and it has, yes, Netflix, The Harder They Fall. So if you have not seen it yet, it is on Netflix. It's The Harder They Fall. We are going to jump into this film, and I'm going to try and get some people to talk about this film with me from all walks of life. So if this is something maybe you think you can be on the show about and you want to talk about and you have like an actual opinion about this film, I really want to know, because I feel like it was totally just washed over. You've got Nathan Majors. You've got who I think is absolutely amazing. I don't know if you've seen Nathan Majors in anything, but he absolutely blew me away in this film. And of course, you've got Idris Elba, but one of my favorite, Lakeith Stanfield, is in this film, and his part. I don't know. It's just, I don't know why it wasn't picked up. I don't know why people didn't think it was better than it was.
Because there are black people in it.
It's all black.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm just like,
except for when they go to the white town,
right?
All white, like literally all white.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the most Western movie Western film I have seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And the choreography between the fights and the score and the cinematography and all these things happening together, like I've seen it at least 5 times on Netflix. Like I just can't get away from it. And so I want to talk about that. So if you want to talk about that one, Tender Bar, Flea, and of course
Tender Bar. I'll talk to you about
dog.
Tender Bar all day.
I'll have you be on that show with me. And The Power
Love
of the
it.
Dog.
Power of the Dog I just saw like 2 nights ago, and it is
it's better the second time around.
Yeah, I gotta watch it again because I feel like
the time I watched it was even better, because it's one of those films, and I know we're running long here, but you guys are still here, so we're gonna keep going for a minute. I have another podcast I have to record at 8:00, but it's one of those movies that you watch it, and I saw it in the theater, and I wish more people had a chance to see it in the theater. But I saw it in the theater, and then when you're when you're a critic, you have to immediately leave the theater and then tell the studio what you think about it. And
wow.
And it was one of those that I waited as long as I could in the theater, and I'm putting notes into my phone,
Mm-hmm.
And then you step outside in the hall, and it was, I need a minute, because I
gotta think about what I just saw.
I didn't know if I loved it. I didn't know if I hated it. I didn't know what I thought about it. And I love that, right? Because you've been given so much, and it's not what you're used to, which I love. You're challenged as an audience member. You're challenged as a human. You're challenged in all of these different things. And so, yeah, it was one of those that a few days later I was like, okay, I actually really love this film. And then I got to go screen it again. I love it when I get to screen something twice before I write a review, especially something like that. And then as soon as they sent me a screener DVD, I watched it again. And I watched it with my husband, and yeah, he was like, what the heck is this?
What the hell just happened?
But what I hate about it, and I don't want to make this the episode because we're going to
no.
What I didn't love about it, and this is what I really want to talk, is that so I'm finally on the Utah Film Critics Association after 10 years of trying to be a film critic, like a real film critic. And
wait, so does that mean that you're tomatoes certified yet?
Not yet. I've tried. I've applied, and it's not there because I really want. That's a whole nother thing. We'll talk about that another time. But when we send our votes in, and then I'm going to see what other associations from other cities are voting for, people are commenting on our votes. Like, people wait for Utah votes to come out because we usually go off the written path. Like the year that Into the Spider-Verse was out, they voted it, Utah Film Critics Association voted it best film of the year. And considering I've got Miles Morales right
Of course
here,
you do.
I agreed with that. I wasn't on the association, but when we
Yeah.
voted this the best film of the year, people thought it was safe. That's a safe vote. We expect more out of you. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's a fantastic film. Like because everyone agrees with it, it's safe.
It's
How about
safe.
everyone agrees with it because
it's
a great
damn
piece of
good.
work?
Yeah, because
So
it's
I
damn
hope
good.
Flea doesn't win. I hope she wins for best
I
director.
hope so
at
too.
least. But again, we'll talk about those things. I'm so glad that I finally got you on here. I should have done it a long time ago.
This is so much fun. I was like, I know this is going to be a good conversation because Val and I always, whenever we've met each other in person, we've had great conversations.
Yeah, it's like we haven't gone years without seeing each other because we just find each other.
Yeah.
And then we talk and then we go years without seeing each other. And then we fight.
Yeah.
It's just that energy that we have. And I love it. And I'm so glad that you decided to do this. And I will definitely have you back. And maybe we'll get Musa on an episode with you because they were on an episode a couple weeks ago. If you haven't seen their movies, please go to I Am Val Cameron at YouTube and watch all of the episodes because we are going to be doing a lot more of Friday night movie highlights. Hopefully another one of your movies again, which would be great.
Working on something already.
Nice. I want to be there. I'll hand out coffee. That's not against my, that's not above me.
We're trying to crew up with all women anyway. So
give me a call.
Yeah.
I will be there
Yeah.
if I can. So
sweet.
Have a good night, everyone. Again, What to See with Val, seemingly appropriate podcast. Movies that make us multiplane podcast. That's where you can find everything. And whattoseewithval.com is where absolutely everything is at. Check out my review for this amazing documentary. I already know I'm going to like the whole thing, even though I've only seen about 25 minutes of it. That's how good it is. Thank you, Holly, for being here.
Thank you, Val.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Go see a movie. And if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet, what are you doing with your life?